just so we can more quickly arrive at some commonalities of outcomes. So we went and probably had, 10 meetings or so of partners and other key volunteers and stakeholders around our state in those groups. And the sole purpose was to take all the outcomes that they might have done, and in each group, try to get that down into a manageable number that was similar. So they might have gotten them down to 5 outcomes, versus the 100 plus that the aggregate of the group might have. And so that was the first step. The next step was now you get all that stuff, and we now get to get together and analyze it. So, like any qualitative research, it's the coding, the analyzing, making comparison tables, staff developing some standardized outcomes, wordsmithing, and then refining. When we came up with our list, we can put them out, thank goodness for technology, ask for some input, and brought them back again. And finally got it down to a workable number. I think at this point we have about 17 that cross education, income, and health. So there were focus group meetings, creating the standardized outcomes, go ahead and categorizing those, and then kind of refining the words. The final refinement, as you all can imagine, was a small group process. If you get too many people in the room, it's just mixing words, and it just gets a little too crazy after that. I'm sure most of you have seen this. This is just when we had our discussions, we had general guidelines. I said, okay, if we're kind of come up with articulating a statement that's an outcome, what do we want in there? And the great thing about doing it this way is this engaged the partners, but it was also capacity building for some of them. Like many, many funders, even in this area, our private foundations, some of our corporate and some of our state funding, were very satisfied with process measures. How many people attended a program, how long was it, and that type of stuff, which is information to help, but it's really not outcomes. As I constantly said, touching the lives of 15,000 people is not what we're looking for as a statement. So, in our outcomes, this was their guideline. In their groups, in our discussions, in our focus groups, we needed statements that, would identify the specific thing we're trying to do, making sure that it was measurable. They didn't have to determine the final measure as target in there, but that it could be measured. Was it aggressive and attainable? We don't want the same old, same old. Was it results-oriented in terms of the standard that you're looking for? And could you do it in a logical amount of time? The extreme would say, don't tell me you're trying to do this in 20 years. I don't know that we could get donors to donate for something that's a 20-year project. Even if it's a long-term project, what are the significant outcomes or standard indicators along the way that you could achieve? So that was not an easy process. That was almost a year-long process. As I think at this point last year, we came up with 17 outcomes. We haven't gotten to indicators yet. And for the first time last year, we used those in our impact, e-CIMPACT, method. I'm sorry, I'm tripping over my tongue because they call it impact track here just to give it a fun name. And so what happened is when they completed applications that year, they first of all hit the down arrow, aligned with whatever pillar they were working on, chose an outcome that was aligned with their program, and used that as the basis for measuring. Now, last year they were able to identify the indicators that they used to achieve that outcome. So we're not quite at the indicators yet. But it was a big jump just to get that far. So obviously the end result of that is that we had more people using common outcomes, but they still weren't quite clear on how to measure them all the time. So that's still to be done. So one of the things that we need to start working on now, and that we actually have some plans on, is over the next several months to go ahead and working on those standard indicators, which is going to be a similar process. We're going to bring back all the partners and other key committee people, volunteers. We have a committee impact committee. We have advisory council, and we want to engage them in that process, where we'll go ahead and probably a two-part process, just confirm and refine the outcomes that we've identified so far. And then secondarily, go ahead and see what indicators they can specifically use to measure that. And by indicators, we mean really what things can they do in the short term and intermediate term. So, for example, if we're talking about graduation, improving graduation, obviously no single program is going to indicate that they've increased graduation. But as a result of their program, did they improve attendance rates, for example? Did they decrease disciplinary actions in school? Did they improve early reading or something like that? So those are the kinds of things that we want to see that people come up with respect to each one of those outcomes. So our step forward, that's one. I did indicate before that, there's kind of some culture change here and community change here. We have a lot of people, both on our board and our committees and the community, that believe in this. But we, again, are also a United Way that has a large number of annual allocations that organizations have received for years. So there's the combined support for doing this kind of work, while at the same time nervousness by any number of leaders that all of a sudden the partners are going to feel threatened by this. So that's going to take a whole additional communication plan to go along with this. And for me, I've come from both sides. I've been a staff person with the United Way for 3 years. I've been in the community with the United Way organizations for 30 years and an executive director. So I don't find this particularly threatening. I think that many of our partners have been saying for years they can always identify an organization, of course not theirs, that says, well, why are we still funding them? So I think that outcomes levels the playing field, and if people believe in the outcomes, it makes the movement forward, I think, a little less troublesome. Coming from New York, I realized I spoke very quickly here, so give an opportunity for questions, and then or the other half of the presentation, take questions, whichever you think is best on.
That's awesome. Thanks, Shawn. Let me, I'm going to go in now, and I'm going to unmute everybody. So
the only thing I've gotten out of it so far is to get the small groups together that have common, like all the counseling programs.
Okay. I'm sorry, could you start that one more time so Shawn could hear? I just now unmuted everybody.
Oh.
And so we're wide open for questions now.
I have a question. This is Marcia Fink. I'm Greater Twin Cities United Way.
Hi, Marcia.
I'm glad to be part of this afternoon. Thank you, Don, for getting me registered. That's very helpful.
You're welcome.
So we have an annual campaign of around $90 million. We have dollars under management of around $55 million, and we fund about 450 programs across about 200 agencies in a 9-county area. We moved to common required outcomes and indicators, some time ago. We have disentangled ourselves from the allocation mentality of our partners. We're not so good that we've gotten to zero-based budgeting and zero-based granting. We haven't done that yet, but we have, and along the way encountered quite a bit of resistance and a lot of other negative feelings. But in the whole, we've also gotten a lot of positive feedback from our partners on that. My question is this, Shawn, in the work that you're doing, I love the idea of really taking